Good evening, everyone. Tonight's shiur is called The True Convert. We've had in our history many converts to the Jewish nation, and many of them have had a tremendous impact on the Jewish nation. Some of them became great scholars, amongst the famous Onkelos, Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Akiva is the son of a convert, and many, many, many along the way. What has brought them, what has inspired them to come to Judaism is perhaps a lesson that all Jews can learn, Jews that are born Jews, and not only Jews that convert to Judaism, but perhaps predominantly Jews that have been born Jews can learn great lesson from these converts. But this is true about a true convert, and we will soon see what we mean. Tonight's shiur very much has a connection to a very important question that we must all ask ourselves, and that is, when truth stares you in the face, what do you do? What do you do when you encounter truth? It stares you in the face. It proclaims its truth to you. What do you do? This is one of the biggest challenges of people. Many people know that certain habits are unhealthy. People tell them that they're unhealthy. You should do exercise. Yeah, I know. You shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't be eating this, you shouldn't be smoking that. I know. And we all know, but somehow we seem to deflect it and not to internalize it. So that is a challenge of mankind generally. How do you deal when truth stares you in the face? What do you do? And I think this is the lesson that we can learn from a true convert. True convert, the reason why he wants to convert is because he stared truth in the face and he has done something about it. He's not sat at home, twirled his thumb, and went on his merry way, but rather changed his whole life, or her life. And I think this is the lesson to be learned today. And one of the most famous of all converts is none other than Yitro. I knew you'd say that, that's why I paused for a second. True, Ruth is. But I'm not speaking about Ruth today, I'm speaking about Yitro. Before Ruth, I'm speaking about Yitro. Yitro was the father-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu. The Torah tells us that Yitro, Vayishma Yitro heard, and he came to join the camps of the Jewish people. Rashi asked, Mashmu Shama Uba, what prompted him to come? He heard about whether it was the splitting of the sea, whether it was the miracles that happened in Egypt, but he stared truth in the face and he did not sit still, and he did something about it. He changed his whole life because of it. And I want to speak about him. Very briefly, and I've said this before in the Darush in the synagogue, the Ten Commandments are extremely important. All humanities build their moral teachings from the Ten Commandments. And although the Ten Commandments are just but a segment of the whole Torah, and all the Torah is holy, and every aspect of the Torah is holy, one verse cannot be more holy than the other, but nonetheless, the Ten Commandments in the eyes of the sages is viewed as so holy and great and important that they sought to include it in the recitation of the Shema, the declaration of God's unity. And for different reasons they decided against it, but the mere fact that they debated and sought to include it shows its importance. And here we have the Ten Commandments, the parasha of the Ten Commandments, that deals with the giving of the Torah, this covenant between God and his people. The most important occurrence of all humanity. And the Torah calls it Parashat Yitro, after Yitro. You would think that if you're going to call it a name, you should call it the Parasha of the Ten Commandments, the Parasha of the giving of the Torah, Parasha of Har Sinai. And if you're going to choose a name, because you want to choose a name, then choose Moshe. Parashat Moshe, what's wrong with that? Parashat Yitro, Parashat Moshe. Why is the Parasha of the giving of the Torah named after? Not Moshe, not Aaron, but after a convert, Yitro. Not that there's anything wrong with a convert, but what's wrong with Moshe Rabbeinu? What's wrong with Aaron? Was not Moshe Rabbeinu the one that went up Har Sinai and received the Torah and gave it over to the Jewish people? Furthermore, we have another very important question. And the other very important question is before the parasha of the giving of the Torah, before Parashat Yitro, the Torah already tells us at the end of Beshalach that the Jewish people, Vayisum Refidim, Vayovo Har Sinai. The Jewish people traveled away from Refidim and they came to Har Sinai as a preparation for the giving of the Torah. And all of a sudden the Torah digresses and speaks about an individual. Here we are speaking about the most miraculous and important occurrences for the Jewish people and for the whole world. And the Torah pauses and tells us a story how Yitro came to visit Moshe Rabbeinu in the desert. Now is the place. Now you want to stop everything, pause the most important scene. Can you imagine in a movie, the most important, they do it all the time, most important scene, and then they go to a commercial. It's annoying, a commercial in the middle. So can you imagine over here we are, we're speaking about the Jewish people, the nation who just experienced an unprecedented miracle of the splitting of the sea. And this was not just a miracle to save the Jewish people, but as the sages tell us, that it was a revelation of the most hidden worlds. The sea is a symbol of Alma de Itkasya, the hidden worlds. The hidden worlds became open to them. God could have made many miracles to save the Jewish people. Could have just taken them up here, planted them there, especially since it was anyway a detour. God could have eradicated the Egyptians and go on your merry way, travel the direction that they were intended to travel. In fact, as we know, the whole crossing of the sea, they crossed in a semicircle and ended up on the same side anyway. So the purposes of crossing of the sea, the miracle of the sea, was not just to save the Jewish people, not just to punish the Egyptians, midah keneged midah, attribute, how do we translate it? Measure for measure, thank you very much. Because they drowned the Egyptians, they drowned the Jews, and they were drowned. But rather because God wanted to reveal to them the hidden worlds as a preparation for the giving of the Torah. And after this miracle, they traveled to Har Sinai to prepare themselves for the giving of the Ten Commandments, of the whole Torah. And all of a sudden, hang on, very important, we've got to stop, and we've got to tell you about Yitro. And Yitro comes to Moshe Rabbeinu. How are you? And he sends a messenger, please Moshe, can you come and greet me? I'm in the desert, I've come to see you, can you come and etc. Why does the Torah stop in such an important, crucial? What does the Torah want to tell us? This is a prelude. The Torah tells us this because this is a prelude and a very important introduction to the giving of the Torah. A very necessary requirement to the giving of the Torah. We know, unfortunately, there is a verse in Tehillim that says, Emet me'eretz titzmah. Truth grows from the ground. And I like to comment upon this verse. Why does it say truth grows from the ground? Truth is the most highest and noblest thing. Hotmo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu emet. The seal of God is truth. Truth is everything. Truth is, the definition of truth is something that endures forever, that it's absolute. Ve'en emet ela Torah. The Torah and the Gemara tells us, en emet, there's no truth. There's nothing that endures like Torah that endures throughout all times. Nothing endures. No one endures. No plant, no tree, nothing endures. Nothing lasts forever except the teachings of God that endure all time. It's timeless. Then it would perhaps be appropriate for King David to say, truth comes from heaven. Why does he say come from the ground? So I like to say the reason why it comes from the ground is because everybody treads upon it. Everybody treads and kicks truth like an inconvenience. Get it out of the way. We tread upon it. And nobody bothers to pick it up. Something's on the ground, you got to bend down, pick it up. You see truth? Oh, there's truth right over there. Who kicked it my way? Kick it another 10 meters another way. Kick it away from me. You were looking at it. Don't bother to pick it up. This is a comment that I like to say about this verse. And that's the truth. If we look around the world, we see the unbelievable falsehood. The unbelievable falsehood that is presented as truth. And we got accepted as truth because it's politically correct. And dare you say what you truly believe in. But that's the truth, but you can't say it. Not to mention what's going on in the UN. Just phenomenal falsehood presented as truth. And the real truth is not accepted. Yes, thank you very much. But the facts, here are the facts. This is what's happening. That's what's happening. This is what happened. That's what happened. Okay, move on. This is not new. There was a very famous and powerful king in the land of Israel in the time of Abraham Avinu. You know what his name was? Not Ruth. Avimelech. Avimelech, king of Plishtim. Avimelech recognized that God was with Abraham. In fact, he says it. Elokim imcha bechol asher ta'aseh. God is with you with everything that you do. Avimelech recognized that God saved him from the wicked King Nimrod. Saved him from Kivshan Hayesh. From the fiery furnace, a miracle happened. Wherever Abraham Avinu went, he was successful. He was blessed. He was a man of God. He was called Nasi Elokim Ata Betochenu. You are a prince of God. Everything that you do, God is with you. So he recognized A, that there is a God. And he recognized B, that Abraham Avinu, who went in the way of God, God was with him. So you're able to clearly see that God is with him, that he's a just, upright, and godly spiritual man. So what did Avimelech, smart man, what did he want to do? He wanted to make a covenant with him. I want to make a covenant with you. That way my kingdom will not be in danger, will be secure. I want to make a covenant with you. After he makes his covenant with him, because he understands that Abraham Avinu is a blessed and godly person, and you don't start up with Abraham Avinu. So he wants his blessing, he wants his covenant, he wants him as an alliance, an ally, not an enemy. I seek peace. After they make a covenant, what does the Torah tell us? It says, Kam Avimelech v'chol sar tzeva'o Avimelech, and all of his entourage, all of his generals and top ministers that came to make this covenant with Abraham Avinu. Vayashuvu eretz Plishtim. And they returned back to the land of Plishtim. That's a powerful statement. You know why? You just said now that I know that God is with you. You recognize that there is a God and you recognize the truth of Abraham. It stares you in the face. Don't you want to inquire? Don't you want to show any interest? Ask any questions about Abraham Avinu? Maybe there's a teaching that could affect you and change your life. Something meaningful. Nothing. All I want is a covenant. I want you as an ally. Once I have you as an ally, I want to go back to my life, totally unaffected by the truth that faces him, that stares him in the face. Totally doesn't care. Shows no interest whatsoever in the lifestyle and the teaching of Abraham Avinu. Abraham Avinu affected thousands and thousands of lives. And he taught people monotheism. And here you have a king who recognizes that God is with Abraham in every deed and action. And you don't care to be a part of that. And you don't want to learn something from that. And you're just happy to go back to your humdrum life. So we see that this is a challenge, it's a problem. Similarly, we know that when there was the splitting of the sea, Sham'u Amim Yirgazun, all the nations of the world heard about this miracle. So you understand now something extraordinary is going on. This is not a regular occurrence. Don't you show any interest? Don't you show any care or concern? Don't you want to know what's happening? Why is it happening? Don't you want to learn from this and perhaps align your life with what's going on? Something extraordinary? Something unique? Similarly, we know that the sages tell us that the Almighty offered the Torah to all nations of the world. Just as He offered the Torah to the Jewish nation, whether He did it through their prophets, their messengers, whether He did it through their spiritual counterpart in heaven, or whether He did it symbolically looking into the future of the nations of the world, is up for a discussion. But in some way, form, symbolically, spiritually, physically, through prophecy or otherwise, or in the heavenly spheres, because we know that every nation has its spiritual counterpart, or whether simply looking into the generations to see whether this nation or this nation or this nation will keep the Torah beyond day one, beyond the exciting honeymoon period. What happens when there is no miracles? What happens when there may be persecution? Will you then keep the Torah? The Gaon of Vilna writes, pertaining to this, that the Almighty, when did this occur? Right after the miracle of the splitting of the sea. In other words, in a time where already the world knew about the great miracles and heard about the great miracles. Nobody moved. Furthermore, the sages tell us that there was a thunderous sound at the time of the giving of the Torah that all could hear. And many inquired, what is this thundering sound? And they asked of Bilam. Bilam was a prophet of the nations of the world. And Bilam said, nothing for you to worry about. The Almighty has a hidden treasure, and He's chosen to give this hidden treasure to the Jewish people, the Torah. Nothing to get all faced out right there. You can go back to watching the football. You can go back to your normal life. You don't have to worry about it. It's not a big deal. So the nations knew, the nations heard. Nobody moved. Nobody cared. Except Yitro. Yitro heard. And he was a person who was so committed to truth and to justice, to such a degree that because he heard and truth stared him in the face, he did something about it. And he came. And for him to come was challenging. Like for any convert, for them to come is a challenging thing. You take that step forward, that's it. Your life can change forever. You may take 2 steps back, you may. Because it's daunting. And there always is that danger for anyone, convert or otherwise. That you take that step forward and all of a sudden you are engulfed with challenges. This happens to every single person when they take a step forward to do something special, something unique, something life-changing. All of a sudden, all of these forces that didn't exist before, all of the challenges that didn't exist before, all of a sudden come and disturb you and interfere. Yitro was from those who overcame all of those challenges. But he didn't do it just then. He already did it long before, and we'll soon see. The sages tell us that Shlosha hayu be'oto ha'etza. There were 3 people who were present, who were advisors to King Pharaoh, when they were discussing the so-called Jewish problem. The Jewish people are becoming numerous. Are they going to be a challenge for us? Will they become a threat? So amongst the top chief advisors of Paro were 3. They were discussing what to do. So Bilam made a suggestion: enslave them, weaken them, destroy them. Paro said, are you crazy? If it wasn't for the Jewish nation, we wouldn't even be around today. If it wasn't for the wisdom of Yosef, Yaakov, who educated and brought up such a righteous and pure person who only didn't think about himself, he thought about others. A wise person who saved the whole country and enriched all of it. We are powerful today. We are the most powerful nation in the world. We are the most richest nation in the world because of him, because of them. You want to destroy them? No. They dethroned him. They dethroned him for 3 months. He said, hey, I've lost my kingdom. He came back and he said, okay. The 2 others were there. Eov, he was quiet. He didn't say anything. He didn't like the idea, but didn't protest. And the 3rd advisor was none other than the Yitro. He objected, and he saw that nothing is going to come of it. The king returned for his own selfish reasons to become king, because he knew that it's going to happen anyway. They'll just appoint another king who will fulfill Bilam's desire. So he vehemently protested and he left. He ran away. Now here you are, you're one of the big advisors of King Paro. You can imagine the wealth. You can imagine the position. Where's he going to go? Where's he going to go? He's got a family. He's got children. He's got a wife. He picked himself up and went. Despite the difficulty, he knew what the truth is, and he went and he did the right thing. Furthermore, when he came to Midian, he was a very great intellectual, a very big theologian, and a big thinker. And he began to investigate. If he didn't do it so beforehand, he was involved in investigating theology and the belief in the different gods or powers in the world. And he investigated them all. And because of his great wisdom and knowledge of idolatry, Midian appointed him as their chief priest. But came a time, and he saw that it's all falsehood. And all of these powers have nothing, and all of these deities have no power, they're nothing. And he informed them, he said, listen, I'm retiring. It's not for me. And they said, no, you're not retiring. We're the ones that do the firing and hiring around here. You can't retire. If you retire, you are embarrassing our gods, you are embarrassing our society, our theology, our belief systems. You can't resign. If you resign, it's an insult to us. You stay where you are. He said, no, I'm sorry, I can't stay where I am. You don't stay where you are and you resign, we will excommunicate you. Excommunicating you means nobody will do any business with you. Excommunicating means people will isolate you, not speak to you, not all the respect and all the honor that you have. Not only you won't get respect and honor, you will be ridiculed and isolated. Nobody will have anything to do with you. Nobody will marry your daughters. Yitro had a good couple of daughters, had many daughters. Nobody will marry your daughters. You know, it's one thing to be idealistic for yourself, but it's yet another thing to be idealistic at a big price for your children. It is very difficult. So fake it, Yitro, fake it. Fake it for your kids. Once your kids are married, established, save up some money for a rainy day when they excommunicate you eventually. Put it in your super fund. And then when you retire, your kids are married, then you can proclaim and profess the truth of what you believe in, etc., etc. No, a man of truth is a man of truth. And when truth stares you in the face, you cannot ignore it. You must do something about it if you are true to yourself. And that's what he did. And guess what happened? They excommunicated him. They didn't do any business with him. Not only that, but he had flocks. Over the years, he amassed flocks. And in those days, you got to take him to the trough, to the watering trough, where the well is. You got to take out the water. He couldn't hire anyone, even with money, even with good money. You'd pay double and triple. Excommunication. Nobody want to have anything to do. Not anybody want to have anything to do with him, and his young daughters had to go and schlep to the well and take. They were persecuted. They were ridiculed. When Moshe Rabbeinu came and watered the flock of these girls, it says Moshe Rabbeinu saved them. Vayatzilem, vayoshiem, and he brought them salvation. Why? Because they were thrown. Many times they were thrown in the well. And this is what they had to endure day in, day out. And when Moshe Rabbeinu comes, the sages tell us that Yitro says, why didn't you invite them in? He was hopeful, maybe he would marry one of you, if just but one of you. A stranger is in town, he showed you some kindness. Maybe he'd marry one of you. So you see to what extent he was desperate, yet he never gave in and he never gave up. And he didn't return back to be the priest of Midian. But when truth stared him in the face, he did the right thing. At a very great expense. And he sacrificed everything for truth. This was Yitro. At a very, very steep price. Hazal, our sages tell us that when God rewards, he rewards consummate with your deeds and actions. It doesn't go unpaid when a person takes those steps forward, especially when it involves sacrifice. It doesn't go unheeded from heaven. It doesn't go unrewarded. Not only does it not go unrewarded, but it is rewarded measure for measure. And the Gemara tells us that whoever honors Talmidei Hachamim, he who shows honor and respect to a Torah scholar, because a Torah scholar studies Torah and he embodies the teachings of Torah. So in effect, he's honoring the Torah, he's honoring God, he's honoring God's Torah, will end up having son-in-laws that are scholars. The Gemara further on says, the Hachamim tell us that he who goes beyond just honoring, but rather shows a love and miyaker, he endears, he does in actions, in deeds, and honors the scholars through action and through deeds, not only just showing them respect by standing up for them, speaking respectfully, and all of these different types of things. So he'll end up he will be blessed with children who are Talmidei Hachamim. Children who will be scholars. And then the sages go on and further to say that he who is in awe and absolute respect of Talmidei Hachamim, of scholars, will end up either being a scholar himself, or his words, Nishma'in ken Talmidei Hachamim, his words will be listened to, paid attention to, like Talmidei Hachamim, like scholars. All of those three, Moshe Rabbeinu, Yitro was rewarded. He honored the Torah, He honored scholars by giving up for truth. He ended up having sons-in-laws that were scholars, least of which was Moshe Rabbeinu. He endeared Torah. He ended up meriting to have his children's children, who were Talmidei Hachamim. Those that sat in the Sanhedrin in Lishkat HaGazit were great-grandchildren of Yitro. They were the great Sanhedrin. They were the great deciders of truth and justice. They were from his great-grandchildren. He had many great-grandchildren who were from the top scholars of Israel. And because he was in awe of God and his Torah and those that studied Torah, his words were adhered to. For when he gave advice to Moshe Rabbeinu listened. To give it, everybody likes to give advice to rabbis. That's the truth. Rabbi, you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and that's normal. Is their advice heeded? No. Is it worth something? So the sages say, you want your words to be worth something? You want to give advice and your advice will be worth its salt? Then you have to be in awe of Torah. When you're in awe, you love Torah so much and you have so much respect for it, then either you will be a Talmid Hacham or your words will be heeded too. Yitro comes along. Moshe Rabbeinu is the guy that receives the Torah, the prophet of all prophets, and Yitro comes along and gives him advice. And he's listened to. And his advice, what does his advice have to do with? Guess what? The administering of justice. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was the sole arbitrator. He was the one that was judging all the Jewish people. And he said, it's very difficult to do so because justice will be delayed until you hear everyone. Administer. Heads of tens, heads of 50s, heads of hundreds. In other words, judges that will judge smaller cases, bigger cases. Heads of thousands and heads of tens of thousands. And the most difficult question that they can't resolve, the scholars and the sages of Israel, they should bring to you. And Moshe Rabbeinu did exactly as he told him. Everything that the sages say was paid back to Yitro, measure for measure. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, he was a grandson of Yitro. What did Pinchas do? We know the famous story in regards to Pinchas, that a person was behaving immodestly. One of the heads of tribes of the tribe of Shimon was behaving immodestly publicly. And he went and he challenged him. And the sages tell us that for him to be successful, he needed 6 miracles to occur. Some say 12 miracles to occur, which means that he knew in advance that he's endangering his life for the honor of God. God was desecrating the honor of God, the honor of Torah, behaving immorally in the camp of the Jewish people publicly. And tonight's topic is not about Pinchas, but just to show you that Pinchas was a grandson of Yitro, and he was willing to sacrifice his life for truth. And for him to do it, he knew that it was almost impossible, but he risked his life nonetheless. This is Yitro. And who did he merit? Who was his son-in-law? Moshe Rabbeinu. Now Moshe Rabbeinu was no stranger to truth. Let me tell you a bit about Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu's father was Amram. Paro decreed that all the males born to the Jewish people, take them and drown them in the river. Amram got up and he said, what am I going to bring children to the world who are going to be drowned? So he He divorced his wife. He separated from his wife. He divorced his wife. Amram was the leader of the Jewish people, the greatest scholar and the most righteous person in all of Israel. And when he did something, everybody followed. Everybody listened. He was the scholar, the leader of the Jewish people. People held him in the highest of respect and esteem. All of a sudden, little Miriam, which was 5, 6 years old, goes up to him and he says, Abba, what you're doing is worse than what Paro is doing. For Paro only decreed about the males, and you are extinguishing, you are causing that even females should not be born. You're right. If a male is born, he will be killed. But should there no females be born as well? Should those souls also be denied entry into this world? And he looked at little 5-year-old Miriam with a short bob hair and cute pink cheeks. And what would you tell such a little girl? Run along and play in the sandbox, right? Run along. But he saw her words rang true. And he said, you're right. And so what did he do? He went and he remarried his wife because of the advice of a 5-year-old child that said truth. And he wasn't embarrassed to admit it, because truth stared him in the face and he did something about it. Now let me tell you something. The greatest leader of the Jewish people, that is a very inconvenient thing to do. You just now divorced your wife because you decided, the halachic ruler of all the Jewish people decided that was the right thing to do. And a 5-year-old child comes and tells you otherwise. And then you go and you change your mind. Now let me tell you something. There could have been many people who may have thought that Amram lost his marbles. Is he all right? Is he for real? He just divorced his wife and then he just remarried his wife because his 5-year-old daughter told him to. What kind of rabbi was he anyway? Maybe we were wrong about him all along. Maybe some were saying we were right about him all along. No, that wasn't the case. Maybe we were wrong. You can imagine what an embarrassing thing for him to do. Surely in the back of his mind, if not in the front of his mind, he was thinking to himself, hang on a minute, what will people think? That I'm a fool? Best what? Best ignore it. I'm not going to go back now. Back on what I did. How embarrassing is it for a politician to say before, this is my policy, and 2 minutes later they say he did a backflip. All of the news, all of the newspapers, all of the radio are hounding at him. Embarrassing. And he was talking about an ethical matter, a spiritual matter, something that affects the whole of the Jewish nation, that everybody followed and did what he did. And 2 minutes later you go. And who was born from that? Who was born from that act of selfless dedication to truth? No matter what. No matter how embarrassing that may be for me. Maybe he would have been fired from his position. Moshe Rabbeinu was born from this. Mashiach. How's Mashiach born? Mashiach comes from Peretz. Peretz is the son of Yehuda. And everybody remembers the story of Yehuda and Tamar, where Tamar rightfully understood that she has to have a child from Yehuda, and Yehuda denied her sons because he thought that whoever she marries dies. And he sort of put her off. And so she stealthily became pregnant from him. And later on, and he didn't know it was from her, that she became pregnant from him. And later on was found out. They said, oh, she's pregnant. Take her out to be killed. And she said, to he who this staff and this seal, to him I'm pregnant. She didn't reveal it was to him. She just sent a message to the one whose staff this is. He looked at it and he said, that's mine. And what would you do? What would a guy do? He'd shut his mouth. What an embarrassing thing to do now. Here he is playing the moral high ground. She should be taken because she committed an act of indecency and immorality. And then he realizes it was him. No, he admits she's right. Salvation, Mashiach, redemption is born from these acts of selfless dedication to truth. And this is why the Torah chooses to stop for a minute. And before it speaks about the giving of the Torah, it tells us now that the Jewish people experienced the miracle of the splitting of the sea, and that the Jewish people now came to Har Sinai. And commercial break. Stop. Now let me tell you a little story about Yitro. Yitro is a nice man who came from Midian, came to visit Moshe Rabbeinu in the wilderness. What are you stopping the most important moment in world history to tell us about Yitro? Who cares? Tell us later on. An appendix to the end of the book. Tell us. There was a guy, good guy, Yitro. He came and converted to Judaism. Nice guy. It tells us right now. You know why it tells us right now? Because it wants to impress upon us. We are just about to receive the Torah. Learn the lesson from Yitro. Learn the sacrifice that he went through for truth. For if you are to truly embrace Torah and truth, then you must learn the lesson of Yitro. And that is why the Torah interrupts our whole story and tells us about Yitro. Because when truth stares you in the face, you cannot be indifferent. You cannot just go back to your regular self. Because if you are, you're not being true to yourself. You are missing an important message that God has merited you with. If God sends you a message of truth, what a merit. What a beautiful message that God is telling you. I'm sending you truth. Don't ignore it like Avimelech. Don't ignore it like so many millions. Embrace it, cherish it, even at self-sacrifice. And it'll come to reward you. I remember an interesting story, and I remember the story because I try very rarely to repeat my darush. I always have to come up with a new darush, with a new sermon or a new slant to the sermon. Maybe it's a similar topic, but a new slant all the time. Because we're in the business of entertainment. We're in the business of entertainment. You got to entertain you. How would it look if every year I would say the same darush? Why is the Ten Commandments named after Yitro? Because Yitro shows self-sacrifice. Next year, why is the Ten Commandments named? Because Yitro shows self-sacrifice. That's all he knows. He only knows one darush. That's all he knows. So this is an interesting story. It's a true story. And I like this story, but unfortunately, I rarely act upon this story. So there was a visiting rabbi that came to a town, a very important rabbi, very scholarly rabbi, and Friday night he was invited to give a darush, and he gave a beautiful darush with a very powerful message. Shabbat morning, visiting rabbi, might as well get our mileage, get our money's worth. And they invited him to give a darush. And he got up and he says a darush, very powerful meaning. It was the exact same darush as he said Friday night. So people thought, maybe he forgot, maybe jet lag. Maybe he didn't have time to prepare. Fair enough. He's also a human being, no? Some would say. Seudah Shlishit, he was invited to give a darush. He gave a darush with a powerful message. Same darush as he gave before. Same darush as he gave Friday night. Now they knew for sure that this guy, they're not going to hire him if the job ever becomes available. Melave Malka, there was a gathering for women who were there in the morning and in the afternoon and Friday night. And he gave a powerful darush with a powerful message. Exact same darush as he gave, an exact same sermon they gave in the afternoon and in the morning and in the evening. Sunday morning breakfast, that was it, the last sermon. They figured, Shabbat's very tiring, poor fellow. He'll have time to rest. Sunday morning he'll give us something new. Not that the darush that he gave was nice, but the halak, the same one. And on breakfast he gave a shiur. What a beautiful shiur, with a beautiful message, powerful message. The same one as he gave the night before, and the same one that he gave. That's it. Some couldn't handle it, and they said, Rabbi, we heard this darush. We heard this message. Is this the only darush that you know? The only message that you know? He says, no, I know many there. So why didn't you tell us? He says, don't you understand? I didn't come here to entertain you. I came here to teach you. Your rabbi, poor fellow, he entertains you every week with a different darush. I'm not your rabbi. I came to teach you. And I know that if I will repeat this lesson over and over again with this message, over and over again, something will remain. Some teaching will remain. Maybe you will heed and listen and take to heart and change your life in accordance with the truth that you heard. And there's only one way. If you hear it again, and 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 you hear it again. Now, I don't dare. I try and say the same message with different words and different... But that's the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is that how can we look at truth and be true to ourselves and just be entertained? How many times do we hear a sermon, a shiur, that rings so true and so right, and we know that it's true, and we know that it's right? I do not believe there are many true atheists in the world. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Because anybody who thinks deeply, and there are eminent scientists, and I read their books, who believe in God. So they have no problem with science. Science doesn't challenge their belief in God. You have a scientist right over here, he believes in God. It's illogical not to know that there is a creator of the world, just like it's illogical to think that this pieces of wood just somehow were shaved off with some whirlwind was shaved off, and the wind brought them all together and made a beautiful, perfect table right just before I came in order for the shiur perfectly. It's illogical, it's mathematically inconsistent, it's a mathematical impossibility, and we don't have the time to elaborate on it, but I don't believe that there are many true atheists. I believe that there are convenient atheists, because a person is inherently good, and a person is inherently seeks truth. We at least seek it, we at least want it. We may not do much about it, but we want it. And therefore it's inconvenient to believe in God. Because how can you believe in God and just do nothing about it? And just sit still and do nothing about it? So we make up philosophies that calm, create a balm, create a remedy to calm our souls, lest we become too uncomfortable and irritated by the idea and by the thought that there is a God. And then there's the last point which I will conclude. And I think that this is a very important technique. When Yitro finally came, it's a hard move for him to come. Not that he didn't have hard steps along the way, he did. But the final step to come and to join the ranks of the Jewish people and to leave everything behind. Despite the fact that he was excommunicated, etc., he still had some wealth, some comfort, some familiarity. To leave everything behind and to convert to Judaism. A total shift. He sent a message to Moshe Rabbeinu, asking Moshe Rabbeinu to come and greet him. Now, a man of truth is a man of humility, because ego, arrogance, honor, kavod is the exact opposite of truth. What is honor? What is kavod? It's fake. It's not true. It's falsehood. Someone who seeks kavod, the Mishnah tells us, there are three things that remove a person from the world. One of them is kavod, this pursuit of this falsehood of honor. You want honor, you want honor. Why then would Yitro ask a favor of Moshe Rabbeinu to come and greet him? Now you know what's going to happen. If the leader of the Jewish people, the prophet of all prophets, gets up and goes to greet Yitro wherever he is at the edge of the camp, what's going to happen, do you think? Moshe gets up, who's going to get up with him? Aaron, Yehoshua, all the elders, all the scholars, all the leaders. And as they sing the entourage, Moshe Rabbeinu gets up and everybody's following Moshe Rabbeinu. Guess what happens? Everybody else follows. And by the time he gets to Yitro, everyone's there. And everyone's greeting Yitro. Why did Yitro ask of such a thing? Why didn't he come to Moshe Rabbeinu's tent, knock on the door, hi, how are you, Moshe Rabbeinu, I brought your wife, I brought your kids, I want to come and join the Jewish ranks. Why did he stay all the way back and ask something that is inconsistent with his belief of truth? And truth is humility. And when you recognize truth, the truth of God, you humble yourself. You nullify yourself before God. You don't exist. Your temporal existence is not important anymore. For two reasons. One reason is because he knew that the Torah was about to be given, according to the opinion that says he came at that point. And he wanted to impress upon the Jewish people, what does it mean? Sacrifice. Look what I'm prepared. I'm a stranger. Look what I'm prepared to do to receive what you may be taking for granted. What you're receiving now here is an inheritance. That's one reason. Another reason is, remember I mentioned to you before, when you take a step towards truth, do something that is life-changing, what always happens? You're about to go to a shiur, what happens? The phone rings. Very important. Should I take it? Shouldn't I take it? You say, oh, I won't take it. And you're looking for your key, then the phone rings again. Oh, maybe it's important. Should I take? Shouldn't I take it? But the shiur, I got to get the shiur. You decide, no, I won't take it. And then you're out the door, and the phone rings again. Oh, I better take it. This is small. What about big thing? You want to start keeping Shabbat. All of a sudden, that first Shabbat is a disaster. Everything is difficult, everything is hard, and you failed, and you turned on the lights by accident, and this and that. Will I ever be able to do it? And the kasher and your friend comes over and invites you to his 60th birthday party. How can I not come? He's my best friend. He lent me $100,000 when I was in the mud, and he saved my life, and I'm going to say no because I eat kosher. How can I do it? I'll just go. I won't eat. And then you go, and you see the pizza, and you eat. Whenever you embark upon something powerfully true, powerfully important and life-changing, all of the stumbling blocks come. All of them. We all know it. We all experience it. I experience it. Everybody experiences it. Yitro also experienced it. Hard for him to come. So you know what he did? He asked Moshe Rabbeinu to come, knowingly that everybody will come. Now, where are you going? Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron is asking Moshe, where are you going? Oh, my father-in-law is here. He wants to come and convert. He's a man of truth. Hey, Aaron, where are you going? Oh, I'm going Moshe Rabbeinu. Where's he going? He's going to greet the man of truth, wants to convert. Hey, where are you going? I'm going Moshe Rabbeinu. He's going man of truth, coming to convert. Where are you going? Everyone's buzzing and humming. Where are we going? We're going to meet this great man, Yitro, who's coming to convert. With such self-sacrifice. Now guess what? Can Yitro turn back now? Can Yitro say, you know what? I changed my mind. What? The man of truth. Sacrifice. Look. It's impossible. It's a good technique. It's a good technique. I learn with someone in Israel twice a week, and he quit smoking. So I told him, if you want to quit smoking, this is advice that I heard from a great Hacham, Rav Eliyahu Dessler. I told him, you're quitting smoking just for now because you got a cold, or you quit smoking? He says, no, I'm trying. I says, you want my advice that I heard from someone else, not my advice? He says, yeah. I says, go to the yeshiva, to all your students, tell them, that's it, I've quit smoking. Go to all your teachers and tell them, that's it, I've quit smoking. Go to all the synagogues where you pray, tell everyone to quit smoking. And then if they catch you with a secret, they'll say, what are you, a fool? What are you? One day you say you quit, the other day you smoke. But say it with a conviction. Then you won't be able. He says, that's why I told everybody I'm trying to quit smoking. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Yitro. We have to learn that something unique comes our way when we are faced with truth, when it stares us in the face. Don't sit still. Take the steps forward. Know that you're going to encounter difficulties. But find the mechanism to overcome them. Know that difficulties will come. Find the mechanism to overcome those difficulties. Tell yourself first what you believe in. Tell yourself the convictions and the reason why. And hopefully we will all succeed.